Okay, hi everybody. This is Mileda from Citadel Studios, and we are talking about Shards Online tonight with the systems designer Bruce, who also goes by, I'm sorry, you're going to have to say it. I've never said it out loud. Logrus?
Logrus, yes.
Oh, there we go. Okay, and with us tonight we have, if you guys would like to introduce yourselves.
I'm Dusty McD.
We have, how about Dermot? You want to go next?
I'm Dermot, longtime UO player, and joined the game to follow these guys who did a wonderful job in their tenure with UO.
Aw. Mike?
Hi, I'm Mike Brendan, writer, reader, gamer, geek, and book reviewer. So, yeah, let's see what we got here.
And painter of magnificent 40K models. And we do have a black square in the middle. That is Gowan, who has the fantastic red-green avatar on the forums. I was really happy to see that. He's having a little technical difficulty right now, so we're gonna have to grab him the next time. So Bruce is here tonight to answer some of our questions about the game systems. And I know we had people email questions. We've had some questions on the forums. But Dusty was the first one through the gates there, so I was hoping he would open us up with what he has in mind.
Yeah, I'll start with what sort of system are we likely to see in order to make trading a viable, playable type of character?
All right, now before I answer that question, I have a required disclaimer.
Oh, right.
First, that we are still in pre-alpha, and a lot of the implementation plans are subject to change, especially depending on feedback as we get backers in, as we get you guys in testing and telling us what you like and what you don't like. So that's the main part of it, and depending on the availability of resources, we'll determine what our scope is at the end for the alpha.
Yeah, I know that's hard. A lot of people have been asking for a specific roadmap and timeline, but...
A little bit difficult to give a roadmap and a timeline because there are certain things that can be done and not necessarily have an effect. So, for example, in the system right now there are, and I will show this to you guys later, there are currently about 50 weapons that actually exist within the equipment system. The artwork that's done is about 4 or 5 weapons.
Does that include the rabbit rockets? Just wondering.
No rabbit rockets in there.
Okay.
But yeah, so that is something that can be developed without any support, but you won't actually see it in game until the rest of the process catches up. So until artwork, engineering, animation, all that has to catch up to simply implementing one new item.
Okay, so with that in mind, Dusty was asking about the trading system.
Okay, so trading across shards, I think let's deal with that first. Each shard within a cluster has their own rule set. Now, this rule set is kind of high level to describe gameplay activity. At the individual shard level, you can have active skills or active skill sets, as well as assigning assets, items to specific worlds or specific limitations. So, for example, if we created a urban warfare shard and everyone was running around with flamethrowers, M16s, and miniguns, you could specify within that rule set that the minigun works on that shard, and you could go from that urban set to a fantasy war set. And when you get to the fantasy, if the fantasy hasn't allowed those specific items, you can bring them there. You just wouldn't be able to use them.
Costume pieces.
Exactly. The other thing is you as you move from shard to shard, you may find, like, if you go to Cyberpunk shard from a fantasy shard, you might not be able to cast spells there because magic might not exist in its form in that shard. So the transparent skills that can transfer will transfer, but skills that have no effect within that shard, you'll have them, they just won't be active.
That reminds me of one of my old favorite comics, the Mystic series from CrossGen. But the trading, what about trading as far as like people who want to be shop owners and setting up a trade system? How is
okay, so for trading, okay, so let's see. For trading, there's a couple of options. One is similar to having an NPC vendor, in which case you'd actually, like if you've been on the, I don't know if you guys are able to do that. Battle of the Backers does not have, for all those who log into Battle of the Backers, yeah. As soon as you log into that particular app, you'll notice there's a little caravan there. It's empty. That's specifically just for Battle of the Backers. In another one of our rule sets, we have a merchant there, and he has wares and items in those crates and on that cart that you can buy.
Now they can see that if they check the very first stream we did, the first developer test, he was in there.
So what you can do is you can either sell your wares to a merchant, and that merchant to a sales merchant that deals in those wares, and that merchant will turn around and sell that. Or you can hire a shopkeeper and rent shop space and have that shopkeeper sell your wares, or you as a player can sell your wares directly. So the shopkeeper would act similar to UO's vendor system.
Cool.
Haven't exactly wanted to implement the in terms of housing, like have the public houses and vendor houses that UO has. It's not that it's not, we haven't considered that yet. It'll probably change depending on feedback, but our initial plan was to have players be able to either hire a NPC seller or sell to an NPC and have that NPC resell it, or you just hire an NPC to sell your stuff directly, and then you get all the gold that NPC sells for.
So that's the quote on the Kickstarter page of you can run a trade empire without raising a finger.
Yes, exactly.
Sounds interesting.
Is that what you were hoping to hear, Dusty?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, well, it was a big part of me playing UO, so it's an interesting idea.
Speaking further along that kind of towards NPCs, we want to try to limit some of the issues that a lot of other games have. One of those things that limit the game is limiting gold within the game. So even though on Battle of the Backers some of the mobs might drop gold, we want to lower the occurrence of gold just being dropped randomly in the game. Additionally, we want NPC merchants to behave somewhat intelligently. So if an NPC merchant might buy 5 swords, he's not going to buy 5 swords again until he sells those 5, or until he sells 3 or 4 of them. If he's not selling them, he's not going to keep buying them. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's an interesting level of intelligence, actually.
Yeah, so we want it to be really kind of, it's not a free game. You know, it'll be difficult to get rich simply because it's difficult to get rich in real life. You know, you don't necessarily want everyone getting rich because that devalues everything.
You mean the trade, playing the trade game is not a free game. You're not going to be able to just sit there and rake it in.
Exactly. It would be from making intelligent trades, like maybe moving from one shard to another with an item that's rarer on one shard to another. So it might be through cross-shard movement. It might be through NPCs who gather resources are a big part. But it might be better if, in terms of limited resources, you went out and gathered as many as you can so there was less to be gathered by other people, and then turned around and had a monopoly on selling it. So it would behoove you to work more, and then you'd get more, and the economy should adjust to that, so that you can a business empire is not just because you happen to do something. It would be a tactical and intelligent plan that you would have executed in order to build your empire.
Basically, working on the whole supply and demand. If one shard needs something but it doesn't have it for whatever reason, you take it from another shard and you'll get more and swap
Exactly.
it forwards.
Exactly.
That's a good plan. I like that.
Let's see. Now, Dermot, did I get your questions beforehand? I may have just been really excited.
Basically, mine was on the item system as a whole, the balance of the item system with the way that pre-Age of Shadows UO handled it with balances, as in heavier armor reduced your dex, disallowed you to regain mana, and so forth, versus the post-AOS where all of that went away in favor of a heavier item mod system. Also, with the items as in the equipment mainly, how do you balance the equipment you get from looting monsters versus crafting? Which ones do you consider more important, or how do you balance the two?
Okay. That's a really cool question. Let's see if we can't have a little bit of.
I was gonna say, here come the spreadsheets.
Yeah. I'm about to whip out the spreadsheet. So.
I think you were baiting them with that, Bruce. Like on the forum, you're like, spreadsheets, yes.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to do that. Spreadsheets are going to have to come out. Let me first say the theory behind the design is, pretty much any game that you go out and you can look at the hype. They talk about a tactical combat system. Any game where there is fighting involved, especially in an MMO, combat tends to be a huge part of the game. Whether you play it or you don't play it, it doesn't matter. In WoW type games, EverQuest, they have a lot of bound items, so that kind of limits your, a lot of the good stuff you have to make yourself. So it kind of takes away from the whole crafting experience, I think, if you can't craft something and give it away or sell it or do what you want with it. But in terms of the equipment system, equipment is really important, but it should be secondary to gameplay. So what we've done with this equipment system is try to make it give something and cost something. So you're always making trades. And you should never have a case where you're comparing two different things and you're saying, this is always better than this one. That's a bad thing in my mind. That's like if you're into first-person shooters. I played a lot of Quake when I was younger, and you used two weapons. You used a rocket launcher, used a lightning gun. Everything else was pretty much useless. That's kind of just how the game evolved. So if you look in terms of where Ultima Online is now, everyone's armor ends up being the same. You have plate armor, you put the same mods as you put on leather armor. You put on leather armor, you put the same mods as you do on the plate armor, and ultimately that whole variety goes out the window, and everything that's good enough to wear versus everything that you want to wear, the top, you can't compete without wearing the top, and that kind of sucks. So in our equipment system, everything is a little bit of give and a little bit of cost. So if you're wearing plate, just like if you were wearing plate in real life, full set of plate weighs 180, 200 pounds. It's heavy. You're not going to. There are things you can do and things that you can't do. You're not going to be really nimble in plate. So if you wear plate equipment in our game, it does hinder you a little bit. And how that hinders you is it limits your ability to dodge, and it also requires a little bit of extra stamina whenever you're executing special moves. We don't want to tie it to swing speed or anything that really is passive. So that way if you're in plate and I'm in plate and we're wearing exactly the same plate mail, or if you're in leather and I'm in plate and we're both using the same weapons, we can really swing at the same speed. Knight who spent all his time in plate mail, he's not that slow. I mean, he really isn't that slow. If you've done research or been interested in that kind of thing, they were pretty nimble in plate mail. You get knocked off a horse, you got to be able to get back up and into fighting. So what that said to me was they actually need to be working on their endurance more. So, they're fighting just like a normal person. Their bigger swings will cost a little bit more stamina because they're also carrying the plate, but their regular combat isn't really effective. They should have developed that endurance by then. When you wear leather armor is not as good as plate mail in terms of absorbing damage, but it doesn't restrict you. So you can be jumping all over the place a lot easier than you can.
And I can regen my mana.
Than the plate mail. Exactly.
That's what got me the first time I tried the pre-alpha version. I don't know if you guys got to see that. I don't think Dusty's been able to play yet, but Dermot, you did, right?
Yes.
And that when you're wearing plates in there right now, you don't regen mana.
Yeah, the mana regen is ridiculously low when you wear plate. The more unnatural what you're wearing, the less your contact is with the ether in the world, or the ether, however you prefer to pronounce it. So you're not absorbing mana from the world as fast when you're wearing plate.
Which is, again, things that can be modded on different worlds.
Exactly.
For our pre-alpha, that's how it works. So, isn't that Chip's drinking game? Do we need to, take a drink every time I say, if you want it to be?
That's a good idea.
That could get dangerous.
Well, we're all drinking water, right?
Yeah, so that's kind of a little difference between, two pieces of armor, leather and plate. Leather offers a little bit less protection, plate offers a little bit more protection. How that feeds into many games is typically you have a few strategies for combat. You deal damage, your rate of damage, your damage recovery, your damage prevention or damage avoidance mechanism. So this usually translates to your weapon skill and tactics, your fighting ability, which is how you deal damage, your healing ability, and then your regen ability, and then your blocking or dodge ability. So your damage avoidance is blocking or dodge. If you wear plate mail, you're taking your one of your damage avoidance abilities out. So plate gives you more protection, but you're less likely to avoid incoming damage. So it's reduced, but you're not avoiding it. Because in leather, you can avoid damage, but when you get hit, it hurts more than it does in plate. So it keeps the damage rates at about the same for all pieces of armor. The difference is simply that one of them, you get these high burst damage. Every time you get hit in leather, you get hit hard, but you don't get hit as much. In plate, you get hit less for less damage, but you get hit for more. So,
I think we found Bruce's favorite part here.
Oh yeah, when I get the spreadsheets out, it'll be out.
We're gonna have to go. We're gonna have to do, I think, just a section on that some night.
So let me not. That's the basic the basic idea behind that. And approaching it from a design perspective and the spreadsheet madness that I do, I am going to screen share with y'all, and this is for y'all. Shh, don't no screenshots.
No screenshots, you say to YouTube.
Of course not.
Oh, we won't screenshot this.
Yeah, I'm kind of recording this.
That's okay, because YouTube is too. I think it is. I hope I set this to record.
Yeah, it does. It records it. It should do.
Okay.
That's live in the upper right corner, so.
Okay, so, wow. What are we looking at?
There were some very fast spreadsheets that went by.
If you click on his name, you'll be able to keep it up.
There we go.
Looks like a character sheet.
So yeah, that's basically calculations versus everything, and what weapon, etc., what damage you do against what, and blah blah.
Pre-alpha. We need our pre-alpha logo. This is pre-alpha. This is design documents. If you're talking at the same time, Bruce, we can't hear you. So just letting you know. I feel bad if you've been talking this whole time.
He's lost to the spreadsheet haze.
Yeah. Listen, I think we definitely found his favorite part. Alright, I'm gonna click off of there because we can't hear you saying anything. So it's a very nice spreadsheet, but we can't hear you.
I wonder if you can hear us.
I don't know. Did something happen?
Now that's
He just wandered off in his own little skeleton world.
Oh, here we go. He's
Can
back.
you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, that sucks.
I'm sure it was a really
I
good
bet he just-
explanation.
I bet he just gave away the secret to the entire game.
That really sucks.
And that's how you play Shards. All right there. Any questions?
Okay, that's hilarious. I didn't know you guys wouldn't be hearing me while I had that up.
Neither did we.
Oh, that's unfortunate for you guys. Let me tell you. Okay, so
So summarize.
that spreadsheet is basically each combat role in Shards. So when if you this allows me to select a weapon, put in a user stats, put in their skills, put in their equipment, and it'll tell me how hard they'll hit each time, how often they'll hit, and give me an average damage per second, and a damage per minute, and an overall damage trend. Basically, I took these numbers for every weapon created, every piece of equipment created, and I fed them into a huge graph. So it gives me trends. And then I went through and I normalized the trends, so pretty much every weapon has really close overall damage per minute. So if you look at it as a long trend, every weapon comes in about the same. Now where the difference is if you're using a dagger, you'll hit really fast, really soft. If you take a dagger and hit somebody in plate mail, they're wearing plate mail, man. You're using a dagger, you're not going to hit them that hard. Not only because plate mail absorbs a lot of damage, but simply a dagger sucks against plate mail. Yeah, there's not a lot of penetration there. If you're using, say, a huge warhammer and you hit somebody in plate, even though the plate might absorb a little bit of the blow, the force behind that blow will get through that armor. And so that makes it a little bit of a better weapon in that situation. And then, lastly, when you compare, say, the same weapons going against someone with no armor on, the dagger will work out a little bit better because of the rate. And since the person is not having any mechanism to absorb damage, the dagger works out as a better weapon in that scenario. And so that's kind of like the two ends of the spectrum, and weapons fall between one or the other.
Okay, at the risk of making this even more complicated to remember at the moment, Dora just did ask, the second part of that was about balancing the usability of crafted versus looted gear. So adding a total new aspect to all of this, or does it?
Nope. So basically, in terms of crafting and loot, that's been an age-old question. I've always felt that if you make crafting good, then there's no point to killing stuff, and if you make killing stuff better, then there's kind of no point to crafting, because each one, whichever one is the lowercase, ends up being placeholder. So to deal with that, the plan is to differentiate items' capabilities by where they come from. So you can craft an awesome item, and you can loot an awesome item, and they'll have, if you loot a magic maul versus a crafted maul, the magic maul will be able to do something that the crafted maul won't be able to do, but the crafted maul will probably do everything a normal maul does better than the magic maul. So you have to, it's about creating a utility system whereby the utility is different depending on the person using them, not so much when you're comparing what's on the item. Does that answer that question for you?
Yeah, like you just said, it's been an age-old debate, and it's always been just to wonder, how do you balance the ideal of crafting versus looted items, and having the drawbacks with the abilities, I think, could be an interesting way to see how that works out.
Yeah. Well, know when y'all start playing and finding it out.
Well, I know in the Battle of the Backers, there wasn't a whole lot of time to really spend looking through the list of mods on an item. You just kind of grabbed the next one and went with it.
Well, one other thing we did, this might answer other questions on the item system, is we created an item system that's complex on the back end. So, like, my spreadsheets are ridiculously complex. If you look at the items in-game, you may notice very small numbers on the mods and very few mods. And the reason for that is, I think that you don't want to have to study to play a game. You want to pick up something immediately and know, is this good? Is it better than what I have? If you have a bunch of items doing the same thing, that's very difficult. If you only have to compare items that are almost exactly like something else, then you can just simply look at the numbers and say, that one's better, and pick it up. So if you are playing the game, you pick up a sword and a maul, you don't really need to look at the numbers. If you've mastered the slashing skill, you're not going to look at the maul. If you're going for bashing, you're not going to look at the sword. If you're already using a sword, then you look at the numbers on your sword and that other sword and say, I'm going to use this one.
Now, I actually have a question about that, because I know when I was doing the Battle of the Backers demo, I found the best thing for me to look for is a maul. Like, I don't know if I just can't hit people with the sword, or I'm no good at stabbing, or what it is. I just found out the maul was the absolute best. Is there already a system in place to kind of adjust to player skill like that?
All right. Well, in the mod, there was a dagger, a rapier, a longsword, a maul, and a spear. Those were the 5 weapons there. And what that did was give you 5 kind of choices of playstyle. And the one difference going in that is kind of difficult coming from, say, any other game is that...
Well, that's bad, because I've played any other game except this until now.
Every other game, all those are melee weapons, and you have the same range. So people were just looking at damage and speed. You have to be like this fighting someone. A sword like that and a spear like that. You get that range in the combat. So depending on how you were playing, that might have affected your choice of weapons. A lot of people like the maul because it hits pretty hard, and you get a nice stun or stagger with it.
I had the dummy weapon, didn't I? I had the weapon anyone could use, and that's why it was my best one.
I don't know. People like the maul, and it has a cool animation, and it looks like it hits pretty hard.
It is a very satisfying feeling.
So one of the basic passives in the game is that piercing weapons crit for extra damage, slashing weapons will cause a bleed effect, and bashing weapons cause a stagger effect. What that means is when you crit with a piercing weapon, you get a momentary burst in your DPS. When you crit with a sword, you get also a little bit extra damage, not as much as with the piercing weapon, but just a little bit extra. And when you hit with a bashing weapon like a maul, you're actually causing your opponent not to respond as quickly, so you're taking less damage. You're not ending up doing more damage.
Oh, okay. Well,
It looks like it's more...
Well, that makes sense because it fits my playstyle, because any game I play, I do better out-surviving the other person more than out-damaging, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's why I tend to play Healy classes.
Yeah, that's kind of what the maul is. It's pretty good on average against all armor types, but it just does not have those extra crit damages on it.
Okay, so we know you already talked about the item transfer trade between shards, but Gowan was wondering how much control over the crafting system will player-run shards have?
It's difficult to...
Or community-run shards would be a better way to put that, sorry.
All right, so this is kind of difficult to... I'm going to screen share again. My apologies.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to probably get myself in a lot of trouble.
What? No. Let's not do anything that gets us in trouble, please.
Okay. I'll just say it.
Okay.
Basically, we have on the shard server component, it has a script interpreter. It controls the communication between the client and the server. That's what it does. Everything else is in script. The stat system is in script. The skill system is in script. The crafting system is in script. You can replace anything. If you want to make it a level-based game, erase the skill system, put your own level script in there.
That would answer the question. A lot of people have been asking, if I want my shard or my community's cluster to have a class-based system, even though you don't have it, can I write that in?
Yes, it's drag and drop. As a matter of fact,
or copy paste.
It's copy paste.
I think what Gowan's more worried about is the one person on their shard making crafting super simple and then trading those items to another shard.
Well, that would have to be within a cluster. So you can only move from one shard to another shard in the same cluster. So it's kind of like in a community, you kind of have to trust the people you're working with. So if you attach your shard to a cluster, you can specify, I'll allow players to bring items over. Or you can say, yeah, they can come over, but none of their items from other shards work. Which is one way to deal with it. But there's no way to balance items coming from one shard to another on an intelligent basis unless you wrote something. But you can do that. You could write, say, I'll only allow swords with up to these number of properties, or I'll only allow... So you can actually write that in. There's nothing stopping you from writing that in.
They're probably going to want to communicate with the other people in your cluster.
Exactly.
A lot. Yeah. He says he likes that. He's talking in the Hangout chat because he's having some audio-video difficulties. So that is our black box right there. This going. But yeah. And then I wanted to bring up one of our questions from the forums. I know that you got to read it. Lord Omadon, who is one of our really, he's got a really great ideas about actually just being a straight up dungeon master on his server. So he has a really big question that, he's talking about. He doesn't want to do PvP. He wants 100% PvE or PvM. I've seen that term a lot. Crafting heavy, multiple shard world that he wants to build inside Shards Online for his cluster. And he said in most other MMORPGs, areas increase in quantifiable difficulty by the levels of the monsters present. Even in D&D, there's a challenge rating as a tool for DMs to know you can drop this on the players and they should be challenged accordingly. So in a situation where I want to have notable, obvious, quantifiable newbie areas, as well as newbies would get destroyed here areas, what are some variables I can work with within Shard Online's level agnostic skill-based system?
Okay, that's a little bit tricky.
We said that once and we were fine.
Yeah. Okay, so difficulty is really kind of defined in two ways. If you're talking about difficulty for a character, then you're thinking of what equipment and what skills a character might have. And if you're talking about difficulty for a player, then you're thinking about what tactics will be used. So, for example, we have rabbits and deer, which have a few hit points, they have very low combat skills, but a naked player, when running up to them, will find them challenging.
Let's say those rabbits are killer.
Yeah, they'll hurt. They might kill you. Now, that's a little bit difficult. Now, if you move on to some of our rookie cultists, even if your skills are higher, they still have low skills, but they have a little bit more evil AI on them, so they're more difficult for that reason.
Well, to put it
so they're more difficult for a character.
Well, the reason that he was asking is he wants to make NPC-based gates for access to rarer, more powerful crafting resources. Like he wants to plant goblins around the copper, and then something more difficult like giants around the iron. So
that's pretty much if you're doing it that way, where you're controlling the spawn areas, then you can just create, the spawn in that area and specify what monster spawns, what skills they have, what abilities they have. You can write custom AI if you want to go that far. I have some drafts for something like a con system. Con, if you're an old mud player, the consider system. A lot, basically, I want to consider this monster, and it'll tell you this monster will flat out kill you, or it might be a challenge. The basis for the con system would basically be to compare a player's combat skills with a monster's combat skills, and return, some value of that comparison, whether the monster is more advanced or less advanced. Unfortunately, that is what would be as close as you could get, because that monster difficulty really will depend on the AI implemented, and that's up to you. But
well, if they're using the base out of the box, what you have planned AI, then
no, then it would depend on what model you're running. Yeah, because some of them are evil. Yeah.
I think Mike had a question to do with that too. He was being very polite and trying to raise his hand.
Yeah, my question revolves somewhat around like the whole, setting up encounter zones with certain difficulties, but also the dynamics of shards as advertised. For instance, if I were running a shard, I'm an old school DM. I like having consequences for actions. Like if adventurers clear out a goblin cave, do they really want to come back to that area because a bunch of guys with sharpened steel come and clean it out every 6 months? So can I have an event-driven kind of setting where I can control what layers might be available to people, what events might come around as a result of that? Is there a learning curve in setting that up?
Yes and no. There's a we have I don't know if you caught our Madness mod stream when we were developing it. One of the things that came out of that was a continuously revolving rule set. And by rule set, I mean just some weird stuff that was altering the way the gameplay was for a certain amount of time. One of them was random lightning storms, which hit people who didn't move. That could cycle through a free-for-all mode where there was no mana cost, no stamina cost, and no cooldowns for any abilities. Kind of chaos. And then find the pink rabbit. Now, what they do is not important. More important is that cycling through those rule sets. So if you set up a controller in an area and you had a cycling rule sets, then you could specify what events or conditions caused what rule set to be implemented for that area. You could also set those triggers to be manually. If you wanted to have like a live event, you can set those to respond to manual events, not automated processes. Does that answer your question?
In a way, yeah. I was hoping to be able to create experiences that are a little bit more unique rather than having different players run through the same intro quest 12 or 15 times.
Oh, you don't need to make it repeatable or even. What you could do is create a number of quests in the same area, and what you do is have a trigger, say, triggered for a specific player that when they enter that area, that's the quest that populates for them. You could also, if you're an active DM, active DMs would be able to go into an area and take control of monsters. They would be able to spawn. You could create a custom adventure script that would revolve around a specific monster, and as an active DM, you could select which monster you want to stick that on, take control of that monster, and then run it manually.
Now, I think that's one thing we've also talked about, which just the idea of Shards Online being a persistent sandbox world, that a lot of this AI is going to be built in, like Mike said, right, where if you go to clear out a cave of goblins, they wouldn't necessarily come back. It could be a persistent change there, yes? Trying to make sure I'm not getting messages.
Did I miss that?
Yep. What I was asking about was one thing, like on our Kickstarter page, it talks about the, you don't have to pick up a quest to go to get, when a dragon is attacking your town because you stole her eggs, because a dragon is attacking your town because you stole her eggs. So that would kind of, I think that's more the part of Mike's question he's wondering about, is if he has a cave full of goblins and his players keep going and clearing that out, are the goblins going to know, hey, I don't really want to go back there because every time we go back there, they destroy our colony?
That's entirely optional. You could set them to respond to that, like, oh, all the goblins are killed. The goblin controller now says, well, it's not safe for goblins here. They're not going to come back here. Or they could say, people keep raiding us. We're going to get some giants or some orcs or some trolls up in here to help us. And the next time you go in there, it's not the same experience. It's something entirely different.
Cool. Does that answer, Mike?
Perfectly.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to grab, we had an email question from Indolith. He said, I'm curious about your vision for PvP and looting. Do you anticipate full loot being predominant feature like it was in UO, or is itemization going to require too much investment for this to work?
Let's see. I really like the PvP with consequences. I think that the more item dependent a game is, the less loss that can be tolerated by players. In UO pre-AOS, you died, you were dry looted, you were back out there with whatever you could find, and you were still able to fight and be effective. Post-AOS, you get looted dry, you're out until you can build a new suit. Unfortunately, you're required to have a certain level of itemization in order to even participate, really. So in that case, post-AOS, it was bad. There's no way they could have maintained the dry loot scheme post-AOS, which I think really lost something. If in Battle of the Backers, one thing that we have done is everything in your backpack is lootable. Your equipment that you're using is not. So you lose a portion of what you have, but you're still somewhat competitive. Now there's a bit of stuff that's not in there, merely because it's a lot more to implement. Like we have limited use of heal potions. People might have noticed those if they kill cultists, might have not. But we're very not item reliant. So with the limited equipment that you restart with, you're still effective. The stuff that you lost is something that it should hurt you to lose, but not cripple you to lose. And that's kind of going to be the approach towards PvP looting. Now, we do have hardcore modes that you lose everything when you die. Everything drops to your corpse. So our implementation will be hardcore on the hardcore server. The regular implementation might not be as bad, but it still will have significant enough consequences that you don't want to die, and dying is not taken lightly.
Now we're talking about that on our official cluster for sure, right? Our official server.
Yep, that would be the official rule set.
Okay. Let's see. And before I forget, I wanted to grab Relexpo sent in a nice big email. You've answered some of this, but he was really wondering about the NPC AI. So, ready to shift gears back to that a little bit?
Sure, that's pretty simple. So there is a base AI, which basically, if you're a programmer, or I guess if you're not a programmer, think of it as capabilities. So you can move here, you can attack this, you can respond to being attacked, you can yell for help, and it also says what state you're in. So, are you hurt? Are you scared? Are you damaged? Are you angry? Are you aggressive? Are you in fear of your life?
So now this is going to go into one of the first questions we got on Kickstarter is, can I build a family like in Fable?
I don't see why not. It definitely can be coding. I mean, it's just more complex AI.
I liked Dermot's face there. What is it that he was like,
basic. So you have that base AI, and that base AI handles actions taken to a certain extent. So if you take that base movement AI, like for the basic spellcasters, they have that base AI, and then they have a spellcasting AI module on top of that. And what the spellcasting module says is, I would like to stay at this range from my target if I have mana. It says, if my target is about to die, if I hit him with a lightning bolt versus a fireball, I'm going to use a lightning bolt. Or rather, I'd prefer to use a lightning bolt. And what it does is that AI module is making decisions based on that module, and it says it ends up with a score for different actions, and then it takes, like, if there's one action that's way above the rest, it'll take that action. If there are a few actions, it'll take a random of the really close set. And then it tells the base AI, hey, I'd like to take this action, and this is how much I'd like to take it. Now, if you added, say, a rogue AI, and within that stack as well, that rogue AI would also be doing the same thing and say, I'd like to stealth because I'd feel safer, and this is how much I'd like to stealth. And that base AI, as it gets these requests, it says, okay, you'd like to stealth this much, but you want to cast a spell this much? I guess I'll stealth. And then it chooses it based on that, so that you can create these new behaviors without actually planning it. So you can create a rogue mage that behaves differently than a mage or a rogue.
So can you also specify then, like, make really, really unique NPCs? Like if you had a camp with several of these rogue mages, but one of them might be the leader and a little braver, and...
Oh, definitely. You can specify stuff in the template. Like one of the things that, even with that casting AI, is there's a casting preference. So how much it's completely independent of skill is how much do they like to cast. So if you take an arcane mage and compare it to a veteran warrior that can also cast, or even a veteran mage and a veteran warrior that would like to cast, you can change that, how much they prefer to do one action or the other, and that'll change their behavior.
And this is all stuff that's going to be on the core game, right? Because, again, we are building a complete MMORPG in addition to the tools. When we hand the players the tools, Draconi said, you know, we want to hand you a complete game that you can modify.
That's correct.
So our official servers, this is all going to be put into place. It's not just theory.
Oh, well, that's actually at work right now in those cultists that are running around on Battle of the Backers.
Yeah?
Yep, and if you see mages, they'll if you're close enough, they'll start firing at you. If you're about to die and they think they can kill you with a lightning bolt, they'll fire a lightning bolt. They're not going to go for it. Doesn't matter if they barely have enough mana for that lightning bolt. If they think that you're going to die with it, they're going to hit you with it.
What I want to know is who programmed that deer every time I chase it to kite me into the ancient bear cave?
I blame Derek for that.
No, Relexpo was asking, I know you talked about hired NPCs. Are they going to be visible in the world? Like, will other people come by your farm and see your workers, illegal or legal? Can you hide them?
Oh no, they're going to be there. They're going to be there in the world, participating and attackable.
Oh, good. So somebody else has set up a trade center. I like how Dermot's eyebrows just went up. So somebody else has a really productive farm, and you want to be the chief beef producer in the area.
Yeah, go
kill all their cows and their workers, and then.
Oh yeah, definitely. They should have hired guards.
Hire security.
Now on the community-run servers, though, if that happens a lot, if somebody creates a monopoly, players are going to be able to rate down their server, so other players will know. You might not want to go there.
Well, if you figure that in, for example, if they're killing your NPCs, like say your NPCs are part of the world, they're not just popping up as you need them. They're not on-demand NPCs. So if you want to hire an NPC to cut lumber, you go to the carpenter or the lumberjack and say, hey, and tell him, I want you to go cut this much lumber for me. Say, give him a down payment so that he feels it's worth his time. He'll go out and start cutting that lumber. If he gets killed, you don't get your down payment back now, but you don't have to pay for the whole thing because he didn't get it.
Everyone's been asking, is this Ultima Online 2? And I'm going to start telling them, no, this is my Kingdom for Keflings 3. But I love that game. Sorry. I do like to go casual sometimes. Okay, he also asked, Relexpo again, will the day and night cycle affect anything, we're talking about the core rule set here, besides the amount of light in-game? Like, will we be able to set behaviors like buffs, debuffs at night that we can't use during the day and vice versa? And weather as well?
Yes. Yes, you can set those things. There might be something about zombies attacking people in a certain mode that might be, somewhere out there that I don't know about, So yeah, the day and night do and can affect behavior, and they can be used to trigger stuff. As for weather, I think we had rain in there at one point, but we have there's a lot of optimization and stuff that hasn't been done. So we have a lot of cool stuff that hasn't been optimized, so you guys haven't seen it. So there is a sky. We had really reflective water, and you could go just a little bit into the water, and you could see the sky reflected in the water as well as your character. So it was dynamic reflection that turned out to be really performance intensive. So it requires a lot more work to optimize. But there is weather. There's a lot of stuff in there that just it has to be optimized.
And everything could do it if you want it. And drink. I think Dusty had another question for us. We're coming up. We've only got like 3 minutes left, and then Google Hangouts might close us off here. But Dusty, what were you gonna ask?
All that you're saying sounds amazing, and the one thing that I've read is it's going to be just as simple as setting up any other server, like for Minecraft and stuff. Now I've never done that, and what you're describing sounds extremely complicated. How are you going to simplify that to keep it as easy as you say?
Okay, so I can answer that real easily. You get everything that we have with the server. So when you're running a server, you're not starting from a blank slate. You're starting with basically our default game.
So I was going to say is when we talk about it's as easy to run as a Minecraft server is because we hand you the binary to run a shard. And what we're talking about is, if you don't make any changes, you can set it up. We talked in IRC about different options for that, port forwarding probably being the most confusing for everybody. But you'll be able to set it up and run it and have your own private shards online. But what he's talking about definitely goes into once you want to start adding custom rule sets. Do that, right?
Yeah, so you get the base rule set, and that means that you're up and in the world as if you've connected to our servers. And then you can go in and start editing our scripts.
Well, there's also several layers of customization. We're going to have, I know you've seen a little bit of the God UI, which right now is just kind of a clickable menu. You have to, it looks like a programmer did it a lot of the time, which is what happened. So it kind of looks like spreadsheet output right now sometimes. But you can modify things in the game, and then there's a layer beneath that where you can modify the world objects and dynamic placements of things, paths for NPCs, and then the rule sets beneath that. We're going to have actually an interface where people who don't have scripting knowledge can choose from some basic rule sets. Correct?
As far as I know, it's definitely
there's an actual, I should pull up, there's a diagram on the Kickstarter page that talks about the different levels, so that when Bruce is talking about actually learning Lua and modifying the scripting, that's actually the next level, like right next to the core server right now, is where all of that is. So there's a lot of things that you'll be able to modify even without the scripting knowledge. Does that help answer a little bit, or did we just...
No, that makes sense. But for those who don't understand, code and all that kind of stuff, will there be some sort of, I don't know, like a key, like if you change this portion of the code, that's going to help you do this, and things like that, like a key to...
Yeah, the code is
definitely.
Well, the code itself is pretty straightforward, but we also plan on doing a lot of documentation in there.
And support.
And there's a lot in there, and support as well, so that when you can either pick it up and read through it, and it'll be clear, like, I want to make a lightning spell do this much, and this is what you need to change. And a lot of it won't necessarily be rewriting script. It'll be changing values to very clear items.
Lots of comments. I've also been in talks with places, like a little bit with CurseForge, and I know in IRC we talked about Nexus and SAM Network and everything, about they already have really rich modding communities, and they all work in Lua, which is one reason we chose Lua. Yes, I have a kitty. And we're working with them as well. We're going to give them the resources they need to help you with that. So, if it's the middle of the night and we can't, necessarily help right away, you'll be able to hop into their IRC chat and be like, oh my gosh, guys, so I have this Lua question. And they are fantastic about it. These are the people that I learned with years ago, and they're utterly fantastic. So we're going to give them the tools, as well as you the tools, send the tools to help you. And Dermot, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah, actually, for somebody, and maybe for a suggestion for one of the next hangouts, Gunga Din is really wanting to know a lot more about the official servers instead of the player-run servers. And I know that I've tried to disclaimer a lot of my discussions on IRC that a lot of my questions are based along those lines as well. So maybe that could be a topic for an upcoming.
I think that would be a fantastic topic for another very soon hangout. If Bruce feels like he could come back, or maybe we could grab Derek and Tim as well, and see what we could get going for that. But yeah, we definitely need to cover that. I know he's saying, and Gungadin's saying in IRC, 50% won't be running servers. And yeah, that's what we saw in the surveys that we did before the Kickstarter began, that 50% of the players, of people who were talking about playtesting, just want to play. They don't want to run a server, and we definitely need to cover the content that's going to be on there, because again, we have a complete MMORPG just on our official servers. So.
Right. So to further answer that question, anything that I say is how it's planned or the implementation is how Citadel does it. So that's what you can expect on the Citadel server. Anything I said, if you like to do it, that's when it comes to the modding.
And when we take a drink. Now, we've gone a few minutes over, so I think it's kind of time to wrap this up. Thank you guys for being on here so much. I know Dusty has stayed up until the wee hours of the morning, and his kids are going to make him hate life in the morning. I'm sorry about that, Dusty. Thank you for being with us.
It's been fun.
And thank you, Gawain. Even though your dog ate your microphone, that was actually a legitimate excuse this time. And Dermot as well. We will definitely. Would you be able to come back when we do a Citadel rule set focused one?
Sure.
Would you want to?
Yeah,
that would be
sure,
awesome.
Absolutely.
And Mike, thanks so much for showing up. I know that was last minute as well. I'm really glad you got to be in here.
Well, thank you for having me.
If we've got 2 seconds.
Yep.
I just realized a question on the side of the chat that had missed.
Okay.
How will automated crafting not trump an actual crafter? Nothing that you can buy should be as good as what you can achieve. So expect that if someone is purchasing something from an NPC, they'll get as good as the NPC can make it, and it might be able to be enhanced more. Anything what we call artisan level will be crafted by players. So there's typical levels for all items, and then there's that artisan level for specialty items that can only be crafted by players, which would kind of be equivalent to artifacts out in the world.
So what if you were an artisan or artisan crafter and you wanted to sell your wares via NPC? Is that how you could run that trade part?
Yes, that's exactly how you do it.
Okay. Thank you guys again so much for being here this last hour, and thanks to everyone watching. We've actually had a few viewers. We'll have this up on the official Shards Online, Citadel Studios YouTube channel probably tomorrow. So thanks again. Everybody say bye.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, Bruce.
Go have a great night.